one of the open questions when I was on 97.3 or 93.7 or 73.9, the Fan in Pittsburgh on Wednesday, the issue of Najee Harris's fifth-year option came up. We hadn't heard what they were going to do. And I said, look, this is tough because now when you exercise the fifth-year option, it's fully guaranteed from the moment you exercise it. It used to just be injury. Now it's injury, and no matter what, you're stuck with that. It was only $6.79 million for Najee Harris, but it's a tough call. And I think back to Doug Martin. Do you remember Doug Martin with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They didn't pick up the fifth-year option for him. Muscle hamster, close enough. Pocket hamster, different thing. Muscle hamster was Doug Martin, but they didn't pick up his fifth-year option, and then he went out and had a great fourth year, and they had to sign him to a long-term contract that cost a hell of a lot more than the fifth-year option, kind of like the whole Daniel Jones thing, who we'll be talking about later in the program, in New York. Didn't pick up the fifth-year option, and then signed him to a long-term deal that cost a lot more than just picking up the damn fifth-year option. So I think the Steelers kind of want that carrot. They want to give Najee Harris the incentive to go out and have a great year, and then we'll see where we are. I mean, the thing about Najee Harris, the difference between him and Jaylen Warren, I mean, Najee Harris will get you the tough yards between the tackles, and I think there's something about that overall intensity and attitude that is quintessential Pittsburgh football. The problem is he doesn't have the natural burst that Jaylen Warren does. And to be highly successful as a running back in the NFL, it's not enough to just say, I will run into any brick wall they put in front of me. Sometimes you got to be able to run around it. And sometimes once you bust through it, you got to be able to turn on the jets. And he just doesn't have that burst. He just doesn't. It was obvious when we were at the game week 2 last year when they beat your Cleveland Browns somehow. They had no business winning that game. Somehow they won that game. When Najee Harris gets the ball in his hands, it is a different feeling than when Jaylen Warren does. It's that simple. So, this is a new Steelers. This is a team that has no qualms about doing what has to be done, even if it means in a roundabout way they're admitting maybe that was a first-round pick we shouldn't have made. They did it with Kenny Pickett, and now they're doing it sort of with Najee Harris by not picking up the fifth-year option. And in all, only 18 of the 32 players taken in 2021 had their fifth-year option picked up.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, when we talk about the draft, and it's like, oh my gosh, all these guys, they're going there, it's going to be great. And then the reality is many of them do not work out, right? And I think that we could say, though, that Harris has worked out for the Steelers. He's been available. He's rushed for 1,000 yards in each of his 3 seasons. But when you take a look at the Steelers and how their offense functioned, at least last year, and, we obviously talked about what that looked like. I mean, Harris averaged 4.1 yards per carry. Jaylen Warren averaged 5.3. Now, that, to me, is the biggest difference. And it makes me understand why the Steelers would take this approach, even though, as you mentioned, the fifth-year option for him would be $6.79 million. That's really not that much when we consider what running back contracts can be, And yeah, the market got a little bit more depressed this year based on who was available. But like last year, you look at Josh Jacobs, who got over 10 million. Saquon Barkley still got a pretty decent salary this offseason as well. So the top of the market is there. The salary cap keeps going up and up and up. I don't know that, it's totally cost prohibitive to say, all right, let's guarantee you under 7 million to be our running back in 2025. So to me, that maybe it is. It's the carrot stick, motivational kind of tactic where, if you see how he functions within the offense, and then maybe at that point you can say, all right, yeah, we want him, Harris to be here for a longer term. But if Jaylen Warren ends up being better, right? He's more explosive. If there's a game where he turns into an every down back, and then you're saying to yourself, wow, we're playing these 2 guys behind the same offensive line, and one is averaging over a yard more per carry than the other, then that's where it kind of does make sense. We'll let this play out. We'll let Harris go into free agency next year.
It is amazing to think that he has indeed had 3 1,000-yard seasons. As a rookie, he had 1,667 yards from scrimmage and 10 touchdowns. He was a Pro Bowler as a rookie, and it's tailed off since then. 1,034 rushing yards in 2022, 1,035 last year, almost identical between year 2 and year 3, but he's a 1,000-yard guy. Now, in a 17-game season, not as impressive as he used to be, and last year he did average 4.1 yards per carry, but the year before that, 3.8. For his career, it's 3.9. And that's the thing. He's not... he's getting the opportunities. He's had a lot of carries. He's had 834 carries in 3 seasons. He's getting the ball a lot. They rely on him a lot. And I think the idea is, we don't know how he's going to feel, how we're going to feel, where he's going to be a year from now. He could physically reach his limit this year. One of the knocks on the Alabama running backs, they beat the crap out of them there. That was one of the Derrick Henry, let's wait and see. Nick Saban has no qualms about using a running back. How much tread is still left on the tires when they get to the NFL in the first place? And I think this is I think the Steelers making the bet. You don't see teams usually bet the under with their players, but they're hedging on the side of $6.79 million is going to be a bad investment a year from now. Mm-hmm. So if we end up having to pay him more to keep him, good problem to have. And that's the other side of it, too. We talk about it from the quarterback perspective. When are teams going to finally just say, go ahead, go see what's out on the market, Tua, Dak, Jared, go see what's on the market. It's not going to be anything better than what we're offering you, and we're done bidding against ourselves like the Giants did with Daniel Jones. We're not bidding against ourselves just because the quarterback has to have some big fancy contract so he can lead the team. We're not going to overpay. And I feel like the Steelers' attitude with Najee Harris is the same thing. All right, fine. He has another 1,000-yard season. What would someone offer him on the open market? Because with a former Alabama running back who's had a ton of carries already in the NFL, your concern is that first year with the new team is the year the wheels go flying off.
Yeah, exactly. And look, that's the thing with kind of any running back. We'll see what Josh Jacobs, another Alabama running back who had the 5th-year option decline, then went out, led the league in rushing, and then the Raiders ended up only paying him for 1 year. They wanted him back. He ends up in Green Bay. So we'll see what he turns into, of course, this coming season with the Packers and what that offense can look like. But yeah, I understand the Steelers' approach here, especially because the running back position is one where you can find a guy, and it's not like they don't have Warren on the roster already. And again, we don't know if he can be an every down back, but say in 2025, they wanted to go running back by committee. Well, you draft a running back, you find a free agent running back that, is on the cheap, a Deontay Foreman who's been everywhere, it seems like, and continues to put up yards, put up numbers, and then he goes somewhere else, and he does the same thing. Like that's the kind of running back you can find on the market, and then you're going to be okay at that position, right? So that's where I get the Steelers' approach, especially given what the position is.
Jaylen Warren averaged 5.3 yards per carry last year. He only had 149 carries, 784 yards. He added 370 receiving yards. He's the guy who has the burst, and I think they're in the process of warming up to the idea that the undrafted guy might be better than the guy on whom we used a first-round
Austin
pick.
Eckler. Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon 2.0.
Well, and that's the reality, and that's why you don't take a running back in round 1 unless you are convinced that guy is going to be a potential Hall of Famer, that he is going to become one of the best running backs in football. You just don't do it. I mean, hell, the Panthers took Christian McCaffrey with Patrick Mahomes on the board. You would have been far better off taking Patrick Mahomes. He's going to play a lot longer, and he's going to have much more of an impact on your effort to ultimately win a Super Bowl.
Like Cam Newton. Cam Newton was not, totally broken up. Cam Newton was 2 years removed from an MVP.
2017. Yeah.
Mike, he won MVP in 2015.
In hindsight, don't you think they wish they'd taken him? Well, not that.
Come on.
David Tepper would have found a way to screw it all up. But don't you think they wish they would have taken him in hindsight? I'm just saying generally. I think he did. I think it was. Okay. But let me just make my point. No matter how good Christian McCaffrey is, Patrick Mahomes is better. That's my point. And it's not. The point is in the abstract. This is, and I'm telling you, the Panthers, in hindsight, would surely wish they had taken Patrick Mahomes. I think any team, no matter who your quarterback was in 2017, you're wishing in hindsight you'd taken Patrick Mahomes. But the point is this, you don't take a running back in round one. Even Christian McCaffrey, top 10 pick, there are other guys that potentially are going to help you a lot more and be on your team a lot longer. And what's that baseball term, the analytics term, replacement value? Like, you can find somebody who is not much less than the guy you would have taken in round one in later rounds of the draft, or not at all, undrafted. That's where the running back position is gone. The running backs don't know why they aren't properly paid. The problem is there are too many of them that are good. That was a realization I had going to West Virginia games 20 years ago. Every year, the Mountaineers had a guy who could play at the NFL level as a running back every year. And it's like, you know what? All these colleges have a guy who could play running back at the NFL level. There are too many of them to go to the NFL. And that's what happens. You can get a guy, especially if you improve your offensive line like the Steelers have. You can get a guy who can hit the hole and go. And that's what they have in Jaylen Warren, who was undrafted, and they don't quite have that same explosion and burst and production in the guy they took in round one. That's my point.
I get that, but Christian McCaffrey is one of 3 players in NFL history to gain 1,000 yards rushing and receiving. I'm a big Christian McCaffrey fan. My point is, you still take Patrick Mahomes. Either, but you still take Patrick Mahomes. Why don't you like the Panthers? Why do you hate the Panthers? You're ignoring the context. I did not say hate. I just said I don't necessarily have any love. But there's.
Well, if you don't have love, what do you have? Ambivalence?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think about them at all.
Okay.
But I don't.
Okay, that's good.
That's
good, Don.
Or
Dick.
Yeah, thanks.
His name was really Dick. His name was Dick. I'm not calling you a dick. I'm saying his name was Dick.
You're right.
Wasn't his name Dick?
Okay. It was Dick Whitman. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's
he stole a man's identity years before that was a thing. Guy gets blown up. Guy gets blown up. Talk about adding insult to injury. You just got blown up. I'm going to become you. Good Lord. All right.
Did he walk toward the light?
I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he got shoved there. Okay. Anyway, what were you saying? You wanted to pick a fight over the whole McCaffrey-Mahomes thing.
I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm just trying to call you out when you make a point that doesn't make any sense.
It does make sense. Any team, I love Christian McCaffrey. Any team would have been better off with Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey. Any team.
Yeah, but
because
you're
Patrick
saying
Mahomes, that's my
vacuum.
point. It's about the position. Yes, I am.
Okay, but
I am saying it in a vacuum.
You can't blame the team for not picking Patrick Mahomes when they had an MVP like a year before that. Like that does not compute.
But the wheels did come off pretty quickly, and it wasn't that much longer.
Absolutely, they did.
Was there. My point is, in a vacuum, in the abstract, looking simply at the value of the position and where you can find others who do almost as well as that guy, my point is, 100 out of 100 times, you're taking Mahomes over Christian McCaffrey, regardless of who's on your depth chart. The question of excellent quarterback, I mean, hey, 8th overall pick, that was McCaffrey. We wouldn't. Yes. We probably would be crapping on the Falcons if they had taken Patrick Mahomes with Kirk Cousins on the. Maybe Michael Penix is going to be Patrick Mahomes, and that's the only way out of this maze for the Atlanta Falcons. But regardless, it's not like they had a Bijan Robinson they were going to take there this year instead.
Sure. Yes, that's true. I mean, like the Browns, in hindsight, should take in Patrick Mahomes over Myles Garrett at number 1 overall in 2017, right? We know this, but. It's not like Myles Garrett is not a potential Hall of Fame defensive end too. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm still not 100% convinced that Patrick Mahomes becomes Patrick Mahomes everywhere else. Maybe he would have been in other places, but like we had the conversation on our PFT text thread recently about if he had gone to the Jets would have screwed him up. The Browns
he wouldn't have become Patrick Mahomes with the Jets. Yeah, they screwed up Baker Mayfield, who's a hell of a lot better than I think the Browns ultimately deemed him to be. You make Freddie Kitchens a head coach, that's what you get. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.